Good Thursday morning and welcome back to Commentators Corner, episode number 24. Tyler Reedy and Brendan Prizeman back with you with our final episode of the third quarter before we head to spring break. And Brendan, I don't know if we can hold the ball here for the final minute or two of the third quarter, but we've got a lot to talk about, starting with Creighton Prep basketball on their way back to the state tournament.
Yeah, let's just dive right into it. So heading into last night, Creighton Prep had made 7 straight state tournaments, looking to make it number 8. They did not play too well on Monday against Bryan. They won that game 53-36, but it was 36-32 at one point in the third quarter, and they were able to pull away off of free throws. And considering that another prep streak involving the state tournament ended a couple years ago with the swim team now being runner-up to Lincoln Southwest twice in a row, anything could have happened in this Lincoln Northeast game, and turned out basically everything happened. It was one of the weirdest, most exciting yet least exciting games I think we've ever called.
Yeah, it was unlike anything we've ever seen before. So to summarize the game, Lincoln Northeast coming out of halftime jumped out to a 32-21 lead at one point in the third quarter. Prep able to storm all the way back, some big threes from guys like Joey Riechel and Casey O'Malley, Joe Sudbeck as well, who had 10 points. Prep got it tied at 41, forced overtime. Game goes to overtime. Teams trade missed shots.
We get down to the ugly first.
We get down to the final 2 minutes of OT. Still no points on the board in the extra period, and Lincoln Northeast just holds the ball for the final 2 minutes of overtime and takes the last shot. Actually, Riechel got a look, too, for 3 at the end. Both teams miss. So Prep gets it to begin the second overtime. No points were scored in the first. And with Lincoln Northeast playing a 2-3 zone defense, Creighton Prep just stood there and held the basketball for 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Did not score at the end of it. Lincoln Northeast did not score in response. The second overtime ended with no points at 41-41, and then the Junior Jays, mostly on free throws, once again able to pull away in overtime number 3 to win it 57-45 in whatever that was of a game of basketball.
Yeah. I mean, it was an incredible game. The Martell Evans punctuation dunk to put the Junior Jays up 12 with about 2 minutes to go in the third overtime ended up really being the dagger. But you mentioned the free throws. Free throws have been way too important for this prep team, I think, the past couple of weeks. They needed them to help pull away from Bryan. Martell Evans win, I believe, 11 of 15 from the line in that game. And then they needed them last night to pull away from Lincoln Northeast. Evans hit 6 of his last 7 or 7 of his last 8, I believe. Luke Jungers had 8 points in the third overtime, all of them coming from the charity stripe. So it's, on the one hand, it's a really good sign that this team can make their free throws when they really matter. But on the other hand, it's not great that it looks like their only offense late in games is either deep threes or free throws. But that's not too important right now. Luke Jungers had 20 points. As you mentioned, Joe Sudbeck had 10. I believe Martell Evans finished with 14 or 15 points. And the Creighton Prep Junior Jays are going back to the state tournament where they will face a familiar foe in the Warriors of Westside.
Yeah, so going back to the regular season matchup between Westside and Prep, it was not very good from a Junior Jay perspective. Warriors won it 82-43 in their gym. So Prep going to need a lot to respond to this one. The biggest issue in the first matchup was depth. Westside can run basically a 9-man rotation. They have 5 returning starters from last year, and then they have some key bench players that were participants last year as well. Junior Jays have a good starting core, but depth has been a bit of a question this year. Scoring depth has not always been consistent. It's been looking a little better lately, especially with the performance Joe Sudbeck had last night, but I think a good start's going to be a big key. The Junior Jays can't fall behind early and let things basically slip out of control. Got to get some buckets from their main guys. Luke Jungers has to be big. Martell Evans has to be key. He had no points for the longest time last night. It took them until the fourth quarter. But Prep just going to have to get back to playing their game, playing active defense, which they did down the stretch last night. And don't overcomplicate things. At the end of the day, it's just a game of basketball. Anything can happen at state, and you got to come in ready to go. That's the biggest key when you're playing a team like Westside in the big dance.
And if you're Westside, a team that's normally so good at defense, I think you look at what Lincoln Northeast did very successfully last night, and that was go to a zone. They ran like a mixture of extended 2-3, maybe a little bit of a 1 or a 2-1-2, a little bit of a box and 1. And it worked. It worked. Prep's offense was really stagnant for a lot of the second half. If Joey Reichel doesn't end up breaking his cold streak and hitting 2 big back-to-back threes in the third quarter, there's a real chance that game doesn't even go to overtime and Lincoln Northeast is heading to Pinnacle Bank Arena. So the zone worked. If Prep doesn't figure out a way to get past that, then Westside or whoever else they end up playing at state could end up exploiting that very easily.
So that Westside game will be at 7:45 at PBA on Tuesday night. Westside's the 3 seed, Prep is the 6 seed. The other Class A matchups are number 1 Millard North against number 8 Elkhorn South. Elkhorn South went into downtown Omaha last night and took down Omaha Central with a 19-point victory. That was a big upset there. Number 2, Bellevue West, hosting number 7, Pius X, who was able to upset Papio South on the road last night. We've obviously got the Prep Westside game at 3 versus 6. And then Gretna, the 4 seed, against Omaha Central, the 5 seed. So some new faces in there from last year. Should be a heck of a state tournament. We'll get to be down there for Monday and Tuesday. Can't wait.
Yeah, hopefully it's as good as some of the games last night were, because Gretna needed double overtime to escape Lincoln Southwest as well. But it's been an incredible season of Class A basketball. It's been an incredible season of basketball for all classes in Nebraska, really. And I'm just hoping that the state tournament is just as great.
Yeah, absolutely, especially after last year. Saw 4 overtimes worth of basketball between the 3 with Prep and Bellevue West, and then the 1 overtime in the final between Bellevue West and Millard North. So should be a lot of fun down there at Pinnacle Bank Arena. What has not been fun has been the situation with Major League Baseball. We have finally reached the end of the road in terms of a deadline. Major League Baseball originally had the deadline at Monday evening for reaching an agreement about the collective bargaining, but unable to reach it by then. However, they had a 16-hour meeting on Monday carrying into Tuesday morning, in the wee hours of the morning in Jupiter, Florida. So they decided, okay, we've met for this long. We feel we're making progress. We are going to push the deadline to Tuesday evening. That deadline was not met either, and the deadline was not pushed back any further from that. Rob Manfred held a press conference and announced that the first 2 series of the 2022 season would be canceled. Bad outcome for baseball. Bad outcome for baseball. The people I feel worst for, and you can say whatever you'd like to say about this, Brendan, but the people I feel worst for are the stadium workers, the minor league players who were just about to get their first shot in the show with opening day this season, but just especially the people whose income and livelihood depends on baseball being played and fans being in these stadiums. It just stinks.
Yeah, you mentioned all the stadium workers, all the local reporters, all the training staff, everyone who doesn't play baseball is going to be in trouble. I remember it was Jeff Passan who posited, if you just don't have the MLB, you take the next 1,200 best baseball players right now, that's a significant drop-off. But you take all 30 owners out, you replace them with 30 businessmen, game might improve. And the owners have been blamed for a lot in this situation, most of it justified, because when you look at what the players are demanding, it doesn't seem all that bad. They wanted a draft lottery, which I believe was one of the concessions the owners did end up making. They wanted a better money pool for first-round draft picks, I believe. And they wanted the minimum wage for minimum salary players to be higher, which all seem like really good things. I don't see anything crazy on that list, but every time they went back to the drawing board, the MLB would just reject that stuff. I know one thing they wanted is a salary floor to prevent tanking. Like, that seems like a great idea to me, but the MLB rejected it, and now we're left here wondering, why did the MLB decide to take a 6-week delay before even opening up negotiations?
Yeah, that's the big problem I have, because you can argue as much as you'd like about, it's the owner's fault because they won't accept this or they won't concede this, or it's the players' fault because they're demanding too much after they had kind of gotten pushed around in the last 2 CBAs. But the bottom line is negotiations were just completely held off for a month and a half, and that just can't happen when so much is on the line in terms of missing games, and you have a sport with the sticky stuff ban and the COVID issues 2 years ago with starting the season late, with a sport that's already starting to lose some fans. This is not going to help. You have to understand that and get to the negotiating table as much as possible and as soon as possible, and it did not happen.
Especially considering how much the owners made it seem like getting games was a priority. There's like a quote from Manfred back in December, like, we're not going to lose any games. We don't want to lose any games. That would be devastating for baseball. But then now we get into late February and he comes in with the nuclear option. We're just like, all right, fine. We're just not going to play it. The inconsistency is not good. It's not good to see from the commissioner. It's not good to see from the owners. I saw a lot of stuff about Manfred, like, when you can make Gary Bettman look like a decent commissioner, you know there's a problem. And I know we were talking about this for a couple weeks now because we knew the baseball lockout was potentially going to happen. And I asked you a question like, on the worst commissioner list, where's Manfred fall? So I'll just ask that again. Where do you think Rob Manfred is right now on the bad commissioner list?
Yeah, he's pretty far down there, because a few weeks ago I didn't want to jump on him too much because at the end of the day he works for the owners, but the bottom line, he could have done something more to get these two sides to the table sooner, and it just everything about what he said seems so hypocritical and what's the word? Contradictory. When he says that losing games is going to be a disastrous outcome for our industry, and then he and the owners and the players do the absolute bare minimum to try and preserve those games, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then there was the whole thing with him laughing and smiling when asked a certain question at the press conference on Tuesday on a day when baseball games and part of a baseball season were being lost. Rob Manfred just continues to dig himself into a deeper and deeper hole. You had the season starting late with COVID-19 2 years ago. You had his decision to begin enforcing the sticky stuff policy for the pitchers halfway through a season last year, which contributed to a bunch of injuries and confusion. And then there's been the whole situation with potentially using different baseballs for higher leverage games. It just... There seems to be something new with him every month, quite frankly. There's the Astros team scandal as well.
Yeah, he screwed up the Astros thing so badly.
Called the trophy a piece of metal. How much worse can it get?
Yeah.
Right? It's just crazy. Just crazy. But so is college basketball in a positive sense. So we've got some things to talk about with that. Creighton got the big win over 18th ranked Connecticut last night at the CHI Health Center, 64-62. Blue Jays picking up their 20th win of the season and their 5th consecutive over the Huskies. A lot of trash talk going on between the two sides there. Ryan Kalkbrenner was huge, 22 points, 10 rebounds on 10 of 14 shooting for the victorious Blue Jays, who take a big step in trying to march their way into March Madness with the win over Connecticut. They've got Seton Hall at home to close out the regular season on Saturday. Brendan, you and I will be at that game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Big East tournament coming up. So big opportunity for the Blue Jays to make their way into this thing with a huge win last night.
Yeah, they've been mentioned as a bubble team for the past couple of weeks, but it seems like with a ranked win, UConn, number 18 in the country, with a win like that and a sweep of the season series against UConn, it certainly feels like they're off the bubble now and firmly entrenched in that March Madness picture, barring a collapse at Seton Hall and then a miserable Big East tournament for them. I think they're in.
Yep, and then Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
Another Big East game. Yeah, we'll get to the big one in a moment. But another Big East game. Villanova knocked off Providence 76-74. Nebraska ball came out of nowhere to take down Ohio State in Columbus. Buckeyes ranked 23rd in the country. Nebraska just 9-21 now, but the Huskers won it 78-70. TCU playing at home upset number 6 Kansas 74-64. Arizona beat USC by 20 in a ranked matchup. Wildcats sitting at number 2 in the country right now. Baylor over Texas in a ranked game on Monday night. Then going back to Saturday as well, Michigan State upset number 4 Purdue. Saturday was a crazy day. We haven't had an episode since then, so got to talk about Saturday a little bit. All 6 of the top 6 ranked teams in college basketball lost on Saturday. Mentioned Purdue going down to Michigan State. Number 6 Kentucky fell to 18 Arkansas, 75-73. Number 17 Tennessee beat number 3 Auburn, 67-62. Texas Tech, who's 9, lost as well to TCU. Number 5 Kansas lost to 10 Baylor, 80-70. Number 2 Arizona fell to Colorado on the road, 79-63. And then St. Mary's with the conference victory over Gonzaga. You don't see the Bulldogs losing in their conference too often, but St. Mary's did it, 67-57 over top-ranked Gonzaga. So 'tis the season, I guess. Chaos in college basketball.
Yeah, and St. Mary's undefeated at home now this year. They had 4 guys in double figures in that Gonzaga victory, and they were up 15 at halftime. So I know we get a lot of talk about how Gonzaga has a pretty inflated record because they play in a weak conference, but St. Mary's could very easily make a deep, deep run in March this year. And I mean, March has already started. Coming up, we got some pretty good games too. Let's see, conference championships have already started for some of the more minor conferences. Texas travels to Lawrence to take on Kansas on Saturday. The final Duke-Carolina game of Mike Krzyzewski's career is on Saturday. USC-UCLA is 16-17. Arkansas-Tennessee is a ranked versus ranked. You already mentioned the Creighton game that we're going to, and then Iowa State-Baylor to close it out. Iowa State, a 20-win team, Baylor number 3, so a lot of great basketball left to be played. And that goes for the NBA as well. The All-Star break is over. I don't think we've done a podcast since the All-Star break, have we?
No, we did.
We did. Yeah, we did talk about it today.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But the NBA is in full swing, about 20 games remaining for everyone. And a look at the standings reveals some pretty crazy things. In the Eastern Conference, the 1st seed and the 6th seed are separated by 4.5 games. In the West, it's 14 games.
Wow.
So in the East, you've got the Miami Heat, who have really not had their full team basically all year. When Kyle Lowry's been healthy, Jimmy Butler's been hurt, or maybe Bam Adebayo's had to take a rest, or Tyler Hero's been banged up. But they're 41-22 with a 1.5 game lead over the Chicago Bulls. DeMar DeRozan had the second longest streak in Bulls history of games with 30 or more points, which is quite an impressive feat when you remember that a certain Michael Jordan played for that team for quite a while. The Philadelphia 76ers recently acquired James Harden in a trade, 3-0 with Mr. Harden right now, and 38-23. The Milwaukee Bucks, the defending champions, 3 games back. The Cleveland Cavaliers, 4.5 games back, and the Celtics, 4.5 game backs as well. Play-in tournament, really interesting right now. You've got Toronto, Brooklyn, Charlotte, and Atlanta. Brooklyn is getting Kevin Durant back later tonight, but they have looked very bad without him. And then you go and look at the West. The Phoenix Suns have been the best team in basketball this year by, I'd say, a fairly wide margin. 50-12 right now, 27-7 at home, a point differential of 8, which is the highest in the league by over a full point. Then the Golden State Warriors at number 2. They've really suffered without Draymond Green. Suffered an injury before the All-Star break, but maybe he'll be back in time for the stretch run. They're desperately trying to hold on to the number 2 seed against a hard-charging Memphis Grizzlies team who has woken up. Ja Morant has drawn Derrick Rose comparisons. He's drawn Michael Jordan comparisons. Basically, any exciting young guard in league history has been compared to Ja Morant right now. In his last 10 games, here's the stats. 33 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists on 52% shooting. He has been on an absolute tear. Then after that, it gets a little weirder. Utah Jazz sitting at number 4 right now. Dallas Mavericks at number 5. Denver Nuggets at 6. And then the play-in, really interesting. A lot of teams that many did not expect to be in there. The Minnesota Timberwolves, who have been a nice surprise this year. The Los Angeles Clippers, who have been missing one or two of their best 2 players for the entire year. The Los Angeles Lakers, who have not done that and are kind of a dumpster fire. And the New Orleans Pelicans, who have won 3 in a row right now and are still somehow entrenched in the play-in without Zion Williamson for this entire year. So certainly a very interesting year in the NBA right now.
And the final 2 teams you mentioned in that West, a combined 17 games below 500. The Lakers 27-34. The Pelicans 26-36. It's just weird. 2 teams that far below even in the playoffs as it stands right now. But hey, why not? I guess.
Yeah,
more chaos never hurts.
Like there's so many questions to this NBA season. You know, like looking at last year or 2 years ago, you had a pretty good grasp on who was good, who was bad, who was probably going to win the MVP. But now I have absolutely zero clue how any of this is going to happen. Are the Warriors going to go on a run, and is Curry going to get the MVP? Is Nikola Jokic going to repeat? Will Giannis get another one? Will DeMar DeRozan go on another hot streak? And then when you actually get to the playoffs, I mean, it's incredible. Do you trust the Warriors? Because right now they hold at number 2. They will play the 7 seed who comes out of the play-in. Let's say that 7 seed ends up being the Clippers. Do you really trust this Warriors team as they are now, or even with maybe 50% of Draymond Green against a fully healthy Clippers team? Do you trust a team like Utah against a team like Dallas? Do you trust Phoenix if, let's say, Anthony Davis comes back and the Lakers start going on a run? And then in the East, everybody's so jumbled up that you can't really tell which of these teams are going to separate themselves from the pack. Brooklyn's 9 games out, and I think they're still the betting favorite to make it out of the East because they've got Kevin Durant coming back. So right now, my finals pick is a repeat finals pick. It's Bucks Suns again. I think that's where we're heading. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something else, but to me that seems like the most likely scenario. Those 2 teams seem like they're playing together the best. They seem like they've got the most experience in big games that doesn't end up hurting them. And they'll both likely have home court for at least the first couple of rounds of the playoffs, which is huge, especially with fans fully back now. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see them, but you never know. Anything could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of anything can happen, let's close this thing out. Brendan had a pretty crazy event on Tuesday night to talk about.
What is happening? Oh, that was bad.
Well, you had a good one last night.
Yeah, I did. Well, I think I ran out of them. We're only supposed to do like 1 a week. But Purdue and Wisconsin, let's go over them. Purdue basketball has been a really solid team all year. They've been top 10 most of the year, 15-1 at home, 13-6 in the conference. And then Wisconsin picked to finish 10th in a lot of pregame predictions. Now, in all likelihood, has the Big Ten Coach of the Year, Big Ten Player of the Year, and potential National Player of the Year in Johnny Davis, averaging 20 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists per game. All 3 of those lead the team. And Purdue went to the Kohl Center last night in what was basically a play-in game. The winner would clinch, at the very least, a share of the Big Ten title, and the game started off pretty fun. Wisconsin held a 5-point lead at half, but Purdue, led by Jaden Ivey, clawed back into it. Ivey had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. And when we got down to crunch time, all of a sudden, let's see, it's 65-64 after an Ivy layup with 50 seconds to go. Johnny Davis hits a jumper. So 67-64 Wisconsin. Zach Edey of Purdue misses a jumper. Wisconsin rebound. So now Wisconsin's at the free throw line, up 3 with 15 seconds to go. Davison misses the front end of the 1-and-1. Purdue rebound. Ivey hits the 3. So all of a sudden it's tied at 67, and then as Metro basketball fans, especially Prep fans, know all too well it was Chucky Hepburn's time. Hit a step-back three from the left wing with 2 seconds left, banked it in to give Wisconsin a 70-67 win and the Big Ten title.
Yeah, what a moment. It was so cool to see the Kohl Center explode like that for a guy from our part of the country, a guy we knew so well and got to call last year. That was pretty awesome to see, no doubt about it. I've already had Frankie Fiddler, another Bellevue West guy, making buzzer beaters at UNO. Now Chucky Hepburn joins him with one of his own to, like you said, win the Big Ten regular season title for Wisconsin, a team that was basically given no shot to do it at the beginning of the year. Pretty cool stuff up in Madison.
Yeah, if they do end up winning in Lincoln this Saturday, I believe, they will have outright clinched the Big Ten title. First time they've done that since 2015. You know what they did that year in March?
Won it all. Well, were they runner-up to Duke?
Runner-up.
Yeah, runner-up.
But they reached the national title game that year. So it's definitely a really solid team. I've heard a lot of people suggesting maybe put them on the one line, assuming they're able to, win the Big Ten tournament or something like that. And I would say that I do not want to see a team like Wisconsin in March Madness. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, so conference titles will get underway next week, as will the state basketball tournament. So this is one of the best times of the year. Enjoy it while it lasts, because once these things get over with, who knows what we're going to have in terms of the sports world, because baseball is still in limbo. And
we can talk about the NFL draft.
Yeah, I suppose we can. That'll be on the horizon as well. But that's about it for episode number 24. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you in 2 weeks' time, looking at probably Friday, March the 18th, as we've got spring break next week. Be sure to catch the state basketball tournament, Prep and Westside, next Tuesday at 7:45 p.m. at Pinnacle Bank Arena. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great spring break as well. See you in 2 weeks.